Could this one change to No Mither make it a more viable perk for survivors in Dead by Daylight? For those of you who don't know, No Mither is a David King perk. It is extremely high risk, high reward. When using it, survivors have their pools of blood suppressed, reduces their grunts of pain by 75%, increases their recovery speed by 25%, and allows survivors to pick themselves up from the dying state as many times as possible before they bleed out. The cost of this is you're broken for the entire trial. So yes, you get a lot of amazing bonuses for running No Mither, but you're always one hit knockdown, and if the killer decides to pick you up right away, there's no guarantee you get use of any of the bonuses. This is probably why No Mither has a pick rate of 0.89%, but surprisingly has an average escape rate of 29.5% according to nightlight.gg. No Mither even has a build whose escape rate is 54.5% according to Nightlight, which uses No Mither, Resilience, Iron Will, and Invocation Weaving Spiders. For context, the overall average survival rate is 44.5%. But another thing that's surprising is how little No Mither has changed since it was introduced to DBD. No Mither was introduced in Chapter 5 of Dead by Daylight. This is when David and Huntress were first introduced to the game. Then, in the 2.2.0 patch, it was updated to change the language to include the broken status instead of just saying, quote, "You cannot heal or be healed past the injured state by any means." But then finally in the 5.3.0 patch, it was buffed to increase the noise reduction of grunts of pain from 50% to 75% and included the increase to recovery speed. No Mither can be really good against killers who want to slug, which ever since the finisher Mori was added to the game has picked up traction in Dead by Daylight. Even in the current winter event, there's an abnormal amount of slugging. Having the ability to pick yourself up an infinite number of times is a really strong counter against this playstyle, as is not leaving blood marks. Really experienced killers can use these to track down injured players even if they're trying to avoid leaving scratch marks by walking. You also tend to see No Mither in troll builds or builds made specifically to waste a killer's time. Pairing it with perks like Buckled Up and Boiled Over give you the ability to pick yourself up should the killer finally realize you're using the prior two perks to buy your teammates time. Generally, the counter to the first two perks in a difficult hook position is to just leave the player slugged. Basically, No Mither is the ultimate anti-slugging perk because unless the killer is just going to stand over you and put zero pressure on the rest of the team, they can't slug you. This can be really valuable because other players can continue applying pressure by progressing on generators instead of having to worry about you. Okay, but what is specifically the change that could make No Mither even stronger? Let players who run No Mither hide their broken status until they're hit by the killer. This means they would still have the broken status, but it wouldn't show on the HUD until the killer finds them and hits them. One of the major barriers to survivors using No Mither is killers seeking out someone who's using the perk and try to get them out of the game as quickly as possible. They're seen as easy targets, and the faster a killer can get a survivor out of the game, the easier it is for them to snowball the rest of the match, because having 3 survivors at 5 generators dramatically increases the killer's chance of getting a 4K just because of how Dead by Daylight is balanced. By hiding the broken status effect, killers won't have anything to target except the first survivor they come across. This gives No Mither users a chance to get some gameplay in before revealing the perks they're running. Because this is actually the only perk in Dead by Daylight that lets other players know it's being run as soon as the match starts without the use of any other perks or add-ons. This is a huge disadvantage to a player who's already making themselves incredibly vulnerable. Functionally, this shouldn't change how No Mither works. They're still broken for the entire match. They'll still have that small amount of grunts of pain, assuming they're not running something like Iron Will. This just makes them less of an initial target for killers. But what do you guys think? Would this make No Mither a more playable perk? Does No Mither need a buff after waiting 3 years since it was last touched? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can bring you more Dead by Daylight content.